The vast expanse of space lit up with another explosion as Captain Harry watched helplessly from the bridge of the EF's Indomitable. The dying screams of her fellow soldiers crackled through the communication systems before falling silent. Her hands gripped the command rail so tight that her knuckles turned white, but she forced herself to maintain composure as debris from the destroyed vessel scattered across the void. The Micron warships moved through space with terrifying grace, their crystalline structures catching and reflecting the light of distant stars. Their weapons, beams of concentrated plasma, cut through Earth's most advanced defensive shields as if they were made of tissue paper. The technological gap between humanity and these invaders seemed insurmountable. Lieutenant Du-Won's voice broke through her thoughts. "Captain, engineering reports our port shields are at 15%. We can't take another direct hit." Despite delivering such grave news, his voice remained steady. Harry had always admired that about him. Even in the face of certain death, he maintained his professionalism. "Status of the 7th Fleet?" she asked, though she already feared the answer. The tactical display told a grim story. Red dots representing Earth vessels were blinking out one by one. "No response on any channels, Captain. The Luna defense line has been breached. Admiral Ko's flagship was last seen taking heavy fire before we lost contact." Harry closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself one brief second of grief for her old friend Ko. They had trained together at the academy, shared dreams of exploring the stars. Now those same stars brought only death. "Show me the enemy formation," she ordered, and the main screen shifted to display the approaching Micron fleet. Their ships arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns, like a deadly constellation of artificial stars. 3 months ago, when they first appeared at the edge of the solar system, Earth's military leaders had assumed their crystalline appearance was merely aesthetic. They had learned too late that the crystalline structure allowed the ships to channel and amplify their energy weapons to devastating effect. The bridge shook violently as a glancing blow struck their starboard side. "Damage report," Harry called out, steadying herself against her command chair. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 6, someone shouted. "Emergency bulkheads responding." Lieutenant Du-Won's fingers flew across his console. "Captain, sensors detect 3 more Micron battle groups emerging from hyperspace. They're moving to flank our position." Harry studied the tactical display, her mind racing through options. The Indomitable was one of Earth's newest vessels, but even she couldn't stand against those odds. More importantly, they couldn't let the Micron forces establish a foothold this close to Earth. "Send an encoded burst to all remaining ships," she ordered. "Fall back to Earth's orbit. We need to consolidate our forces with the planetary defense grid." The words tasted bitter in her mouth. Another retreat, another step closer to humanity's last stand. As the Indomitable's engines roared to life, Harry watched the Micron ships advance. Their crystalline hulls pulsed with internal light, like beating hearts made of diamond and starfire. Who were they? Why had they come? In 3 months of brutal combat, not a single communication had been received. The Micron, if they even called themselves that, had simply appeared and started killing. Multiple missiles incoming. Du-Won's warning snapped her back to the present. Impact in 15 seconds. "Evasive pattern Delta," Harry commanded. "Deploy countermeasures and divert all available power to aft shields." The massive ship responded sluggishly to the helm commands. She had taken too much damage in the previous engagements. Harry watched as the missile tracks closed in on their position, knowing that at least some would get through. The first impact threw her against her restraints. The second knocked out their primary power core. By the third, emergency lighting had kicked in, bathing the bridge in an eerie red glow. "Get us out of here," Harry ordered as damage reports flooded in. "Maximum thrust to Earth. And someone get me a secure channel to command. They need to know what's coming." As the Indomitable limped away from the battle, Harry took one last look at the tactical display. The Micron fleet was spreading out, methodically destroying any human vessels that couldn't retreat fast enough. Their perfect formations never wavered. Their attacks never showed mercy or hesitation. Message from Earth Command, Captain, Do-1 reported. They're ordering all surviving ships to fall back to defensive positions around the planet. Ground forces are being mobilized worldwide. Harry nodded grimly. They had lost the outer system, lost Luma, lost everything except their homeworld. But Earth itself would not fall so easily. Humanity had one final line to hold, and they would hold it or die trying. As the blue marble of Earth grew larger in their view screen, Harry silently promised the approaching enemy that they would pay dearly for every inch of ground they took. The war for Earth's survival was entering its final phase, and though victory seemed impossible, humanity would not go quietly into the night. The beam of Dr. Taha's flashlight cut through the dusty darkness, illuminating walls covered in intricate patterns that had not seen light for 50,000 years. Sweat trickled down his face despite the cold underground air. His hands trembled slightly as he traced the ancient markings with weathered fingers, hardly daring to believe what he was seeing. The discovery had been accidental. A Chinese mining operation in the Gobi Desert had detected an unusual void 2 kilometers below the surface. What they found was beyond anything anyone had expected. A vast facility of clearly artificial origin, but dating back to a time when humans were supposed to be primitive hunter-gatherers. Professor Song Mei, he called out, his voice echoing through the chamber. You need to see this immediately. His colleague's flashlight beam bobbed through the darkness as she made her way over, her footsteps echoing on the stone floor. Song Mei adjusted her glasses as she examined the wall. Her eyes widened as she recognized the patterns Taha was pointing to. These aren't decorative at all, she whispered. They're gene sequences, complex ones. But that's impossible. This level of genetic engineering shouldn't have existed back then. Taha nodded excitedly. Look at the repeating patterns here and here. His finger traced the spiraling symbols. It's like they encoded entire genomes into the walls themselves. But why? What were they trying to preserve? The facility stretched out around them, a maze of chambers and corridors that seemed to go on forever. Their research team had only explored a small fraction of it in the weeks since its discovery. Every new room brought more questions than answers. The war effort needs to know about this, Song Mei said quietly, her thoughts turning to the battles raging in orbit above them. If our ancestors had this level of technology, there might be something here we can use against the Micron. A distant rumble shook loose some dust from the ceiling. Even 2 kilometers underground, they could sometimes feel the impacts of Micron bombardment. The aliens had begun targeting major population centers 3 days ago. There's more, Taha said, leading Song Mei deeper into the facility. We found something in the lower chambers, something that might explain why this place was buried so deep. Their flashlights revealed a massive door ahead, covered in warning symbols that needed no translation. Whatever language the ancients had used, the message was clear: danger lay beyond. The door itself was a marvel of engineering, constructed of an unknown alloy that showed no signs of corrosion despite its age. We managed to get it open yesterday, Taha explained as he input a code into the modern keypad they'd installed. But I wanted you to see this yourself before we reported. The door slid open with a hiss of ancient mechanisms, revealing a vast chamber beyond. Their flashlight beams seemed to be swallowed by the darkness, barely illuminating the massive shapes that lined the walls. Are those? Song Mei's voice trailed off as she stepped closer to one of the enormous containers. Despite the power having failed millennia ago, frost still coated its surface. Through the clouded glass, she could make out something massive, something that defied easy description. Stasis chambers, Taha confirmed. Dozens of them, and they're all occupied. He wiped away some of the frost from the nearest chamber, revealing more of the shape within. Whatever our ancestors created, they went to extraordinary lengths to contain it. The power systems may have failed, but something in these chambers is still maintaining temperature. Song Mei pressed her hand against the glass, feeling the cold bite into her skin. The creature within was easily the size of a small house, its form a bizarre combination of features that seemed drawn from Earth's most dangerous predators. "They were building weapons," she whispered. "Biological weapons unlike anything we've ever seen." Another impact shook the facility, stronger this time. Dust and small pieces of debris rained down from above. "The Micron are getting closer," Taha said grimly. "We need to decide what to do with this discovery. If these really are weapons, we might need them sooner rather than later." Songme stepped back from the stasis chamber, her mind racing. "Our ancestors sealed these creatures away for a reason. They built this facility 2 kilometers underground and erased all record of its existence. Whatever these things are, they must have been terrifying. More terrifying than the extinction of humanity." Taha asked quietly. "The Micron are winning this war. We've lost the outer system, lost Luna, and now they're bombarding Earth itself. Maybe our ancestors left us these weapons for exactly this kind of situation." Before Songmei could respond, their radio crackled to life. "Dr. Taha, Professor Songmei, please respond." A military voice called out. "We're picking up increased enemy activity in your sector. All research teams are ordered to evacuate immediately." They shared a look, both knowing they had to make a decision. The fate of humanity might well depend on what they did next. "We need to tell them," Songmei said finally. "But we also need to understand what we're dealing with. These creatures could be our salvation or our doom." Taha nodded, already reaching for his radio. "This is Dr. Taha. We need to speak to command immediately. We found something. Something that might change everything." As they prepared to leave, both scientists took one last look at the sleeping giants in their ancient prison. For 50,000 years they had waited in the darkness, and now humanity would have to decide whether to wake them. The war above might be going badly, but releasing these creatures could start something far worse. The choice they made here, in this buried chamber beneath the desert, would determine not just the outcome of the war, but perhaps the very future of life on Earth itself. The underground facility hummed with activity as military personnel and scientists worked to restore power to systems that had lain dormant for 50,000 years. General Jinho stood before the massive stasis chamber, his weathered face reflected in the slowly clearing glass. Behind him, Dr. Taha and Professor Songmei nervously watched banks of ancient monitors spring to life. "Run this by me one more time," Jinho said, his voice echoing in the cavernous chamber. "You're telling me our ancestors, who weren't supposed to have technology beyond stone tools, created biological weapons capable of defeating an advanced alien civilization?" Taha stepped forward, his tablet displaying complex genetic sequences. "Not exactly, sir. They created guardians. The distinction is important. These beings weren't just weapons. They were protectors designed with a singular purpose: to defend Earth from any threat." The general's eyes narrowed as he studied the massive shape becoming visible through the clearing frost. "How is that different from a weapon?" "Because they can think," Songmei interjected. "The genetic coding we found suggests these creatures possess intelligence, the ability to learn and adapt. They weren't meant to simply destroy. They were meant to protect." A low vibration ran through the facility as more power systems came online. The stasis chamber's internal lights began to pulse with a soft blue glow, illuminating the creature within. Even frozen in suspended animation, it radiated power and menace. "What exactly am I looking at?" Jinho asked, unable to tear his eyes away from the massive form. Taha consulted his notes. "The best we can tell, they combine traits from Earth's most successful predators throughout history. The regenerative abilities of certain reptiles, the problem-solving intelligence of corvids and cetaceans, the adaptability of insects, all enhanced through technology that shouldn't have existed 50 millennia ago." The creature in the chamber was easily 15 meters long, its form a perfect fusion of power and efficiency. Armored plates covered its body, but they seemed to flow like liquid metal. Multiple limbs were folded against its sides, each tipped with what appeared to be both natural and technological weapons. Are those ports in its skull? Jinho asked, pointing to metallic interfaces visible through the creature's semi-transparent cranium. Songmin nodded. We believe they were designed to interface directly with technology. The genetic sequences suggest they can actually absorb and adapt enemy tech, incorporating it into their own biology. Another tremor shook the facility, this one stronger than before. Dust rained down from the ceiling as distant explosions echoed through the earth. The micron bombardment was getting closer. How long until it's ready? Jinho asked, his military mind already calculating possibilities. The revival process has already begun, Taha said, checking the ancient monitors. But sir, we need to be certain about this. Once we wake it, we won't be able to put it back to sleep. A soldier burst into the chamber. General, the Micron have broken through the outer defenses. They're landing troops in major cities worldwide. Jinho's face hardened. We're out of options. How do we control it? That's just it, Songmai said quietly. We don't. The genetic coding suggests they were designed to be partners, not slaves. They'll fight to protect Earth, but they'll do it their way. The stasis chamber's frost was melting rapidly now, revealing more details of the creature within. Its eyes were beginning to move behind transparent armored lids, and its breathing had started. Slow, powerful movements that made the whole chamber vibrate. Do these things have a name? Jinho asked, watching as more systems came online. Taha pointed to symbols carved into the chamber's base. The closest translation we can manage is Guardian. This one is designated as Alpha. The creature's eyes snapped open suddenly, golden orbs with pupils that shifted like liquid metal. Intelligence burned in those ancient eyes as they focused on the humans before it. The chamber's fluid began to drain. Everyone clear the room, Jinho ordered. Except you two, he added, pointing to Taha and Songmai. You found it, you wake it. As military personnel evacuated the chamber, the creature began to move. Its movements were smooth, deliberate, like a predator assessing its surroundings. The last of the stasis fluid drained away, and the chamber's seals began to disengage with hisses of ancient pneumatics. Sir, Taha said nervously, there's something else you should know. The genetic coding suggests these creatures never stop evolving. Each challenge they face makes them stronger, more adaptable. Good, Jinho replied grimly, because right now, humanity needs all the evolution it can get. The chamber's front panel began to lower, and for the first time in 50,000 years, Guardian Alpha took a breath of Earth's air. Its massive form unfolded as it stepped forward, each movement a perfect blend of biological and technological grace. It towered over them, its golden eyes studying each human in turn. Another explosion rocked the facility, closer this time. The creature's head snapped toward the sound, and a low growl emanated from its throat, a sound that seemed to vibrate in their very bones. I think it remembers its purpose, Songmai whispered, watching as the creature's armor began to shift and adapt, preparing for combat. Guardian Alpha took another step forward, its massive form casting shadows in the chamber's harsh lighting. As if responding to some ancient programming, panels along its sides began to glow with internal energy. The war for Earth was about to change dramatically, and humanity's ancient guardians were awakening at last. The ruins of Seoul burned under an alien sky. Captain Harry crouched behind a fallen concrete pillar, watching through military binoculars as the massive transport vehicle approached their position. 6 hours of brutal urban combat had left the city's northern districts in ruins, with Micron forces pushing relentlessly toward the heart of the city. All units, fall back 3 kilometers, she ordered into her comm unit. I repeat, all forces are to clear the engagement zone immediately. Her soldiers didn't question the order, though they must have wondered why they were ceding hard-won ground to the enemy. The transport's heavy doors ground open with a hydraulic hiss. Guardian 1 emerged slowly, its massive form casting long shadows in the evening light. Even after 3 days of briefings, Harry still found it difficult to comprehend what she was seeing. The creature moved with a fluid grace that should have been impossible for something its size, its armored hide rippling like liquid metal. "Command, Guardian 1 is deployed," she reported, awaiting enemy response. She didn't have to wait long. The Micron forces advanced through the rubble-strewn streets, their crystalline armor glinting in the firelight. Energy weapons hummed as they charged, filling the air with an electric tension. The aliens moved with mechanical precision, their formations perfect even as they picked their way through the urban battlefield. Guardian 1 watched them approach, its golden eyes tracking every movement. The creature's intelligence was evident in its stillness. This was no mindless beast, but a predator analyzing its prey. Panels along its sides began to pulse with internal energy, responding to the Micron weapons. The first alien shots lanced out, brilliant beams of concentrated plasma that had torn through Earth's best armor like paper. They struck Guardian 1's hide, and simply dissipated. The creature didn't even flinch. Instead, its armor seemed to absorb the energy, growing brighter with each impact. Then it moved. Harry had studied Earth's fastest predators during her military training, but nothing had prepared her for this. Guardian 1 crossed the distance to the Micron front line in seconds, its massive form moving with impossible speed and precision. Its first strike sent 3 alien soldiers flying, their crystalline armor shattering on impact. The Micron responded with coordinated fire, their weapon systems linking to create more powerful beams. Guardian 1's hide shifted and adapted, developing new patterns that scattered the energy attacks. More than that, Harry realized the creature was learning with each exchange, its biological systems analyzing and countering the alien technology in real time. "Command, you need to see this," she reported, her voice tight with controlled excitement. The creature isn't just fighting them, it's dismantling their entire combat strategy. Guardian 1 moved through the Micron, ranks like a force of nature, its multiple limbs striking with devastating precision. When the aliens activated their personal shield generators, the creature simply adapted again. New organs emerged from its armored hide, generating localized electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the shield technology. The Micron began to fall back, the first time Harry had ever seen the aliens retreat. Their perfectly coordinated movements became chaotic as Guardian 1 pressed its advantage, herding them into kill zones with tactical intelligence that matched any human commander. "All units, prepare to advance on my mark," Harry ordered. "The creature is pushing them toward Sector 7. We can cut off their retreat if we move now." As her forces moved into position, Harry watched Guardian 1 through her binoculars. The creature had grown during the battle, its form incorporating and adapting aspects of the Micron technology it destroyed. It was becoming something new, something that combined the best of biological and technological warfare. A Micron battleship appeared overhead, its massive form casting shadows over the battlefield. Energy weapons powerful enough to level city blocks targeted Guardian 1. The creature responded by unleashing capabilities they hadn't known it possessed. Its entire body became a weapon, generating fields that turned the aliens' own energy attacks back against them. The battleship's shields failed under its own reflected firepower. As the massive vessel began to fall, Guardian 1 turned its attention back to the ground forces. The remaining Micron troops found themselves caught between the advancing human forces and an apex predator designed to counter their every advantage. "Command, the enemy is in full retreat," Harry reported, watching as the aliens abandoned their positions. "Guardian 1 has cleared the entire sector. We're moving in to secure the area." As her troops advanced through the battlefield, Harry studied the aftermath of Guardian 1's first combat deployment. Shattered Micron technology littered the ground, along with pieces of crystalline armor that had proved useless against the creature's attacks. More interesting were the changes in Guardian 1 itself. Its form had evolved during the battle, becoming even more efficient at countering the alien threats. The creature turned to watch the human forces advance, its golden eyes reflecting intelligence and purpose. Harry realized that this wasn't just a weapon they had unleashed. It was a guardian in the truest sense, adapting and evolving to protect its charges. For the first time since the Micron invasion began, she felt real hope for humanity's survival. High above, more alien ships were retreating from Earth's orbit. The message was clear. Humanity had found a way to fight back, and the war was about to change dramatically. Guardian 1's success meant they would soon wake its siblings, unleashing more of humanity's ancient protectors upon their enemies. The battle for Seoul wasn't over, but as Harry watched Guardian 1 prepare for its next engagement, she knew they had turned a corner. The Micron had finally met something they couldn't simply overwhelm with superior technology. A creature designed to adapt to any threat, no matter how advanced. The war for Earth's survival had entered a new phase, and humanity's ancient guardians were leading the charge. Commander Kita leaned over the glowing tactical display, watching colored dots move across the Pacific theater. Deep in the underground command bunker, he could still feel occasional tremors from the battle raging above. The massive holographic map showed Earth's forces in blue, Micron units in red, and the Guardians as pulsing golden markers that moved with terrifying speed across the battlefield. Guardian 3 has engaged the enemy fleet near Midway, Lieutenant Minji reported, her fingers dancing across multiple control panels. Guardian 4 is moving to cut off their retreat. Kaita watched as the golden markers converged on a cluster of red dots. The Micron ships tried to scatter, but the Guardians had learned their tactics well. 3 and 4 moved in perfect coordination, herding the alien vessels into a killing zone where Earth's remaining naval forces waited. "Send in the 7th Fleet," Kite ordered. "Tell them to hold their fire until the Guardians have disabled the enemy shields." The bunker hummed with activity as orders were relayed and battle plans adjusted in real time. Working with the Guardians had required a complete revision of human military doctrine. These weren't simple weapons to be pointed at a target. They were intelligent beings that required cooperation and respect. A massive impact shook the command center, causing lights to flicker briefly. "Report," Kita barked. "Micron heavies trying to break through our outer defenses," Minji responded. "Guardian 2 is moving to intercept." The tactical display showed Guardian 2's marker streaking across the Pacific at impossible speeds. The creature had adapted to underwater movement, developing new organs that let it traverse oceans faster than any human vessel. As Kita watched, it burst from the waves directly beneath a Micron battleship. The alien vessel's shields flared and failed as Guardian 2's biological countermeasures went to work. "All ships, open fire," Kite ordered. "Don't let them regroup." The ocean lit up with weapons fire as Earth's fleet engaged the vulnerable Micron ships. Guardian 2 moved through the battle like a force of nature, its massive form leaping from target to target with deadly precision. Each engagement made it stronger as it absorbed and adapted to new Micron technology. "Sir," Guardian 3 reports unusual activity in the enemy fleet, Minji called out. "The Micron are attempting some kind of emergency technological upgrade." Kita frowned. The aliens had been doing this more frequently, trying to rapidly evolve their weapons and defenses to counter the Guardians. But what they could achieve through technology, the Guardians could match through biological adaptation. "Get me a direct feed from 3's neural interface," he ordered. The main screen switched to show the battle from Guardian 3's perspective. The creature's enhanced senses perceive reality differently than human eyes, seeing energy flows and technological signatures as clearly as physical objects. Through its vision, they could see the Micron ships attempting to reconfigure their crystalline structures. "They're trying to match the Guardian's electromagnetic disruption abilities," one of the scientific advisors noted, attempting to create a feedback loop that would. The advisor's voice trailed off as Guardian 3 simply adapted in response. New organs emerged from its armored hide, generating frequencies that shattered the modified Micron crystals. The aliens had spent hours developing their countermeasure. The Guardian had evolved past it in seconds. "Guardian 4 has breached their line," Minji reported with barely contained excitement. The Micron fleet is in full retreat from the Pacific Theater. Kaitai allowed himself a small smile. After months of losing ground to the alien invaders, they were finally pushing back. The Guardians had changed everything, not just through their raw power, but through their ability to adapt and overcome any challenge. Sir, Minji's voice had grown more serious. We're detecting massive energy signatures from orbit. The Micron are bringing in reinforcements. The tactical display shifted to show dozens of new contacts emerging from hyperspace. The alien ships were larger than anything they'd seen before, their crystalline structures glowing with power that made the sensors struggle to get clear readings. They're desperate, Kite realized. They're committing their heavy forces because they know the Guardians are only getting stronger. He studied the tactical display, watching as Guardians 3 and 4 regrouped. The creatures had already begun to evolve in response to the new threats, their forms shifting and adapting even before engagement. More importantly, they were coordinating with human forces naturally, integrating themselves into complex battle strategies. All commands, initiate Operation Thunderstrike, Kite ordered. The Micron just committed their reserves exactly where we wanted them. Multiple golden markers began moving across the display as more Guardians joined the battle. They had been holding back their full strength, waiting for the aliens to commit their forces. Now the trap was ready to spring. Sir, the Guardians are signaling they're ready to begin, Minji reported. They've adapted to space combat faster than we predicted. Keita nodded grimly. Above them, humanity's ancient protectors were about to engage in the largest battle since their awakening. The Micron had come to Earth believing their technology made them invincible. They were about to learn why humanity's ancestors had sealed away the Guardians, not out of fear, but because they were almost too good at their purpose. Give the attack order, he commanded. Let's show them why they should never have come to Earth. The battle that followed would be studied for generations to come. The day humanity's Guardians took the fight to the stars, evolving and adapting until not even the most advanced alien technology could stand against them. And in his underground bunker, Commander Kita watched with pride as the creatures their ancestors had created fulfilled their ancient purpose, protecting Earth at any cost. Professor Songme stared at the holographic display with a mixture of awe and concern as the latest biological scans of Guardian 1 scrolled past. The creature had grown far beyond their initial expectations, its massive form now dwarfing the military vessels that accompanied it in orbit. The data streaming in showed changes occurring at a molecular level, with new abilities emerging almost hourly. Look at these readings, she said to Dr. Taha, who stood beside her in the monitoring station. The rate of adaptation is increasing exponentially. Each encounter with Micron technology isn't just teaching them. It's fundamentally changing their genetic structure. Through the observation window, they could see Guardian 1 floating in the massive containment chamber between missions. Its armored hide rippled with patterns of bioluminescence, internal organs pulsing with energies that their instruments struggled to measure. At nearly twice its original size, the creature had evolved far beyond its ancient creator's designs. The electromagnetic pulse generation was just the beginning, Taha noted, reviewing the data. They're developing abilities we don't even have words for. Look at these energy signatures. They're not just disrupting Micron technology, they're rewriting it at a fundamental level. A military officer rushed into the room, his uniform bearing the marks of recent combat. Professors, we need Guardian 1 ready for deployment. The Micron are mounting an attack on their orbital platform. Songme checked the creature's status. It's still adapting from the last battle. We should wait until... Her words were cut off as Guardian 1 suddenly moved, its massive form shifting in the containment fluid. The creature's golden eyes fixed on them, with an intelligence that seemed to grow sharper by the day. It wasn't waiting for permission anymore. It knows they're coming, Taha whispered. It's choosing to engage. The containment chamber doors began opening automatically as Guardian 1 initiated its own launch sequence. The creature had evolved beyond their control systems, developing interfaces that let it communicate directly with their technology. As it emerged into the launch bay, its hide began shifting, preparing for space combat. Military personnel scrambled to clear the area as Guardian 1 moved with purposeful grace toward the airlock. Its massive form had developed new organs specifically for space warfare, propulsion systems that mimicked and improved upon both human and Micron technology. All personnel, clear the launch bay, Song Mai ordered through the command system. Guardian 1 is initiating autonomous deployment. Through the station's external cameras, they watched the creature emerge into space. Its bioluminescent patterns created a haunting display against the backdrop of stars as it oriented itself toward the distant Micron platform. Other Guardians were converging on the target as well, but Guardian 1 had emerged as their leader, demonstrating tactical abilities that surprised even its creators. "Look at the Micron response," Taha said, pointing to the tactical display. The alien ships were pulling back, creating a defensive perimeter around their platform. "They're afraid. They've never shown fear before." The Micron had good reason to be afraid. Guardian 1 had destroyed dozens of their supposedly invincible warships, adapting to and overwhelming their most advanced weapons. The creature's hide now incorporated improved versions of their crystalline technology, allowing it to channel and redirect energy in ways that defied physical laws as they understood them. New biological readings coming in, Song Mai reported, watching as fresh data streamed across her screens. "It's evolving again. Right now, in response to their defensive formations." Guardian 1's form began to shift in space, new structures emerging from its armored hide. The creature had learned to analyze enemy tactics and develop countermeasures before combat even began. Its intelligent adaptation had reached levels that bordered on precognition. The Micron opened fire first, their energy weapons creating a web of destructive force that would have vaporized any human ship. Guardian 1 moved through it like a dancer, its evolved defenses dispersing or absorbing the attacks. More than that, it was using the energy against them, channeling it through its new biological systems to power its own weapons. "It's not just fighting them," Taha realized, studying the combat patterns. "It's teaching the other Guardians. Look at how they're mimicking its adaptations." The space around the Micron platform had become a graveyard of crystalline ships as the Guardians pressed their attack. Guardian 1 led the assault, its massive form moving with impossible grace as it systematically dismantled the alien defenses. Each destroyed ship provided new technology to analyze and improve upon, driving its evolution ever forward. Song Mai's instruments suddenly lit up with warnings. "Energy spike. The platform is." The Micron station exploded in a blast that briefly rivaled the sun, a last-ditch attempt to destroy their attackers. When the light faded, Guardian 1 emerged unchanged, its evolved defenses having protected it completely. More than that, it had shielded the other Guardians, extending its protective abilities to its companions. "This is beyond anything we imagined," Song Mai said quietly, reviewing the combat data. "They're not just weapons anymore. They're becoming something entirely new." As if hearing her words, Guardian 1 turned its massive form toward the observation station. Its golden eyes seemed to peer directly through the reinforced walls, meeting Song Mai's gaze. In that moment, she understood that they hadn't just awakened humanity's ancient Guardians. They had unleashed an evolutionary force that would reshape the very nature of warfare. The Micron's fear was justified, but it had come too late. Their invasion of Earth had awakened something that couldn't be stopped, couldn't be controlled, and couldn't be predicted. Guardian 1 and its siblings were evolving beyond their original purpose, becoming something that even their ancient creators might not recognize. And the evolution showed no signs of slowing down. Admiral Harry stood on the bridge of the EFS Indomitable, watching Earth's ancient Guardians tear through the last remnants of the Micron invasion fleet. Guardian 1 led the assault, its massive form now evolved far beyond its original design. The creature moved through space with impossible grace, its biological systems perfectly adapted for void warfare. Enemy command ship detected. Lieutenant Du-1 reported from his station. They're attempting to rally their forces for one final stand. The Micron vessel was massive, its crystalline structure glowing with desperate power. But as Harry watched, Guardian 1 and its siblings converged on the target. The creatures had grown so powerful that even the aliens' most advanced technology seemed primitive in comparison. All ships, maintain position, Harry ordered. Let them finish this. The Guardians attacked in perfect coordination, their evolved forms unleashing abilities that defied conventional physics. Guardian 1 struck first, generating fields that shattered the command ship's crystal matrix. The other creatures followed, each targeting specific systems with surgical precision. The alien retreat quickly turned into a rout as their leadership structure collapsed. Ships vanished into hyperspace, fleeing Earth's defenders. Victory, after months of desperate fighting, had finally come. But as Harry watched Guardian 1 glide past the Indomitable's viewport, she felt a deep unease. The creature had changed during the war, growing in both size and complexity. Its golden eyes held an intelligence that seemed to peer right through the ship's hull, studying the humans within. "Admiral," Du-1 called out, his voice tense. "We're detecting unusual activity from the Guardians. They're moving into formation." The massive creatures had arranged themselves in a perfect geometric pattern above Earth, their forms pulsing with synchronized bioluminescence. They were communicating with each other in ways that human instruments couldn't decode. "Get me Professor Songmei," Harry ordered. "We need to understand what they're doing." The scientist hologram appeared on the bridge, her face showing the same concern that Harry felt. "They're evolving again," Songmei reported. "But this time it's different. They're not adapting to any external threat. They're changing themselves deliberately." Through the viewport, Harry could see new structures emerging from the Guardians' armored hides. Their forms were becoming more streamlined, more efficient, developing systems that seemed designed for deep space travel. "They're looking at the stars," Songmei said quietly. "Our instruments show they're scanning distant solar systems, analyzing potential hyperspace routes. They want to explore." Harry felt a chill run down her spine. They had awakened these creatures to save Earth, but in doing so, they had created something far beyond a simple weapon. The Guardians had evolved not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. They had developed desires of their own. "What do we do?" Harry asked, watching as Guardian 1 turned its massive head toward the distant stars. "We can't control them anymore. We probably never could. They could leave Earth defenseless if they choose to go." "I don't think that's their intention," Songmei replied. "Look at their formation. They've positioned themselves as a protective screen around Earth. They're not abandoning their purpose, they're expanding it." Guardian 1 suddenly moved, approaching the Indomitable with deliberate care. Its evolved form dwarfed the human vessel, yet it managed to convey a sense of gentleness. Through the viewport, Harry found herself meeting its golden gaze directly. In that moment, she understood something profound. Their ancestors hadn't sealed away the Guardians out of fear of their power. They had done it because humanity hadn't been ready for the responsibility of shepherding a new form of life, one that could grow and evolve beyond anyone's expectations. "They want to protect us," Harry realized, "but they also want to grow, to explore, to become more than what they were made to be. Just like us." The other Guardians moved to join their leader, their massive forms creating a breathtaking display against the starfield. They were no longer simply Earth's defenders. They had become something new, something that bridged the gap between biological and technological evolution. "We need to make a decision," Songmei said. "Do we try to contain them again? Or do we accept them as they are and face the challenges that come with shepherding a new species?" Harry looked at Guardian 1, remembering how it had saved them all during the darkest days of the invasion. The creature had evolved beyond its original purpose, but it had never forgotten its core mission: protecting Earth and its people. We let them grow, she decided. We work with them, learn from them, and face the future together. Our ancestors might not have been ready for this responsibility, but we don't have that luxury. They're part of our world now. As if understanding her words, Guardian One's form pulsed with bright bioluminescence. The other creatures responded in kind, creating a spectacular light show above Earth's atmosphere. They were celebrating not just victory, but the beginning of something new. The war was over, but humanity's greatest challenge was just beginning. They had to learn to coexist with beings that could evolve beyond their understanding, yet remain dedicated to their protection. As Harry watched the Guardians begin their patrol of Earth's orbital space, she realized that this was perhaps their ancestors' greatest gift. Not just weapons to defend Earth, but companions to help guide humanity toward its own evolution. The stars seemed brighter somehow, full of both promise and challenge. Earth's guardians had awoken, and they were ready to face whatever the universe might bring. Not as weapons, but as partners in humanity's journey to the stars.